We are back for another edition of The Mom Game. This is our 63rd episode of The Mom Game, Emily. And you know what? We're here to say today that it's not all jokes. It's not all fun and games on The Mom Game. We have a guest that's going to join us on this episode. It's going to be some serious talk, but it's some talk that I feel like is very important and topical right now. Why don't you tell us who's joining?
Yeah, I mean, we do like to have some fun and jokes, and we'll sprinkle some in here and there, but a very, very serious subject matter as far as mental health is concerned. And I am so excited that my friend Drew Robinson, former Texas Ranger, has agreed to join us and tell us his story. And if you don't know his story, trust me, you're going to want to hear it. So Drew will be with us in just a moment. But first, we've got to get to Gateway, because today's episode of The Mom Game is brought to you by our friends at Gateway Buick GMC at LBJ and Jupiter. I know that buying a car can be stressful, but not at Gateway, because their slogan is Gateway's got it. And just what does that mean? Well, it means Gateway's got a wide selection of new Buicks, GMCs, and GM certified used vehicles, all competitively priced. Gateway's got it. In these busy times, you want a car dealer who makes things easy and convenient. Well, guess what? Gateway's got it. When you log on to gatewaybuickgmc.com, look for the Shop, Click, Drive button. This allows you to shop from the comfort of your home, and who doesn't want that? In fact, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, select your vehicle. 2, create your offer. 3, schedule your delivery. And on top of all this, Gateway Buick GMC offers complimentary car washes for life. So when you want a dealer who has it all, Gateway's got it. You can find them online at gatewaybuickgmc.com or shop in person at LBJ and Jupiter. GMC, we are professional grade. Experience the new Buick. And now I am super stoked to bring in a good friend of mine who has made some news recently because of the way he has shared his story, which I am super, super proud of. A guy I've gotten to know over the years who is kind of like one of my kids. I love him dearly. He is Petey, Drew Robinson. Am I okay to still call you Petey?
Yeah, of course.
Before we go farther, can we get to the bottom of where Petey came from? Because I need to know.
So I still don't know. It was like, it's like this like alter ego-y type thing. It was his nickname in the clubhouse. It was kind of like, you know, you don't really talk about how you got the nickname Petey.
I'm so sorry. I already ruined it.
No, it's okay. Or where it came from. But he was always just Petey.
Gotcha.
Always Petey. So is there any more light you can shed on that?
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so. Okay, we've got a lot to get into, Drew, and I'm so excited that you said yes to coming onto this. But we're going to kind of go a little bit, you know, in chronological order, and I want to start with kind of your time here. You know, when we first met, where you were, your baseball career, and you know, just kind of, I guess, your time here in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, where do I start? I spent so much time with Texas. Got drafted by them in 2010, went through 7 years in the minors system, and then eventually made my way onto the team in 2017 and was kind of up and down for the 2017 and 18 season, getting to know you and everyone part of the organization. I mean, I spent 9 seasons as a part of that team. So I remember when I posted about the trade that eventually happened, I worded it as I spent a third of my life at that time with the Rangers. So yeah, a lot of good relationships, a lot of good times, and it was a really good time to be a part of the Rangers organization.
How big was baseball for you growing up? I mean, it seems like for so many of you guys, it's your life. I mean, that's all you know. This is the ultimate goal, and then you kind of reach this goal, and then you're fighting to stay in it. And was it always that way for you as a kid?
Yeah, baseball, yeah, just like everyone else. There was one year, actually, my 8th grade year, I actually stepped away from baseball for a little bit. I was kind of going through a hard time. Like everyone else was hitting the growth spurts. I felt like I was falling behind, so I wasn't having as much fun because I wasn't competing as well. But for my whole life, it was all baseball. I mean, go to school, come back home, practice outside my house in the neighborhood with the neighborhood kids, and then go to practice and play more, like another couple hours or so of baseball. So it was nonstop baseball. And the times I wasn't playing myself, I was bat bowling for my brother at his baseball game. So I was constantly at the field with my family, and it was our lives for, I mean, shoot, it still is my life. So I spent the last 25 years pretty much at the field nonstop.
You mentioned in 8th grade that it just wasn't as fun and you stepped away from the sport for a little bit. Did you feel like that was a theme as you progressed in your career? Were you always kind of trying to decide, am I having fun or am I doing this because I feel like I need to do this? Because I know with a lot of athletes, you have that joy when you learn a sport as a kid and you get so into it and then it becomes a job and some of that joy goes away. Is that something that you felt you were kind of trying to navigate even all the way, from when you were a kid all the way up until the majors?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because at the time you don't really realize you're kind of addressing it like that. Sometimes it was really fun, sometimes it was really challenging, and those challenges you kind of just try to get used to that feeling of struggle, I guess, and you don't really know what's happening or why it's happening, but there's definitely times where you go through some struggles in baseball where you're kind of questioning, am I doing this for the right reasons? What am I doing this for? And all those things. But yeah, it's just kind of like everything else in life. It just you kind of go through waves where it's just, you feel like you're on top of the world for a little bit, and there's other times where you feel like you're struggling and it's not as enjoyable. But like I said, you're not as aware of it in the moment. And looking back, I definitely kind of addressed it like that and went about it like that.
So on that note, I want to ask you something as a mom who has a son who's extremely competitive and is very hard on himself and wants to be perfect. And I'm like, dude, if you want to be perfect, you better find another sport because baseball is definitely not going to be it. So how early on do you have those conversations? What advice would you give me as a mom to, things to watch out for, things to do, things not to do?
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, like paying attention if he is trying to being a perfectionist. That can be detrimental at times with a sport that has a lot of failures surrounding it. I remember I was that kid in Little League. Almost every single time I got out, you can ask all my teammates back then, I was crying almost every single time. I remember we didn't have as much money growing up, so I always borrowed bats, but I still found a way to slam bats even though they weren't mine. And it was just looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? But yeah, I just always thought every time I got out, for some reason, I thought it was unacceptable. And I thought that I was lesser of a player because of it. But I don't know. I think just paying attention to signs, letting them know that it's okay and that mistakes don't define you as a person. And if you can try to change the wordage on it and understand that mistakes are more lessons than failures, I think it's important to just get that understanding at an early age, because I think that would have really helped me at the time, because for so long, up until I was an adult, I thought mistakes kind of defined who I was. And if I was failing as a person as well. So kind of just playing with the word usage and getting a better understanding of what everything means at an early age will set him up for a lot more comfortable times through the more challenging times that he's going to face.
So I want to kind of lead into, your story now, what is such a huge part of your story. And I want to start by talking about what you were like in the Rangers clubhouse, the PD that I know. And I would have never imagined, and I think it's a testament to how cognizant we have to be of people and what they're going through, and that we may not be able to see it, because you were, one of the cut-ups in the clubhouse. You always seemed to be happy and not really, I knew you were disappointed when things didn't go well, but you didn't seem to take it too hard, or at least I couldn't see it. And you always seemed to be, jokester and, all part of the fun and all that kind of stuff. And then, so when I heard, saw this promo for this story, and it was kind of vague, and it was alive, and I see you, and I'm like, what the hell has happened? And, I was like, oh my goodness, this seems like something really, really bad happened. And I reached out to you, and, you assured me everything was okay, but you were really excited about sharing your story. So I guess in a nutshell, if you can, the ESPN documentary is tremendous, but in a nutshell, can you, kind of just share your story?
Yeah. So I got two things before I share the story. I think that it's interesting for me looking back, the PD that you saw in the clubhouse, that was the realest thing about me. Unfortunately, when I would go home at night, I would kind of second guess myself and question whether I was being real or not. But that PD that you knew, that was the realest thing about me. And that was something that I hold on to still and try to tap into these days, because it was such a fun time. And two, I just, like you said, you never would have known. And it's kind of similar to what I talked about with baseball earlier, is that you don't really know what's happening at the time. You just feel like crap. But to lead into the story, I just, like I said, I kind of really second guessed myself with everything I did. And I was constantly, I don't know, I always felt like I was falling short in every aspect of my life. And I just thought that I was less of a person when I would go home at night. And whenever I had some alone time, it was just really ugly thoughts. And I just doubted myself with everything I did, second guessed myself. And eventually, after some really tough things that unfortunately a lot of people kind of went through last year with the pandemic, calling off a wedding, dealing with that part of my life, along with being isolated in my house, with baseball shut down for the first time in my life. It just was a really bad mixture for me, and I wasn't prepared for it at all. And it eventually led me to thinking that committing suicide might be the better option. And on April 16th, 2020, I eventually got to that point and really went for it and attempted suicide by shooting myself. And thankfully and amazingly, I was unsuccessful. And even more amazing, I came out of it with a new perspective on life and understanding of how precious life is and how beautiful it is. And this new perspective of understanding that I have a lot to be grateful for. And there's a lot of real and fake out there. And the fake part was the struggle that I was feeling at the time. And the real thing about me was the good personality and the goofy personality that wanted to make people happy. And I've kind of held on to that. And I'm now trying to turn this really ugly decision that I made into something beautiful. And I think that me and the team at ESPN really were able to do that. And so that's where we're at today. And that's why we're talking.
I watched the whole thing last night. Like, I mean, I'd seen little clips of it and heard your story, but I sat down and watched it from beginning to end. Let me just say, first of all, we're so glad you're here, like here in this world and here today. So thank you so much. What you're doing with this platform is so incredibly brave. And I know it's probably so much easier to maybe not talk about it and to open yourself and get back up to that vulnerable spot with what you're doing, knowing that it can help so many other people is just amazing. I mean, I had chills, I had goosebumps. I was excited all day to get to talk to you and just to tell you that. So first of all, thank you. And thank you for making yourself available and spreading this very important message. I'm sure it's not easy.
And I mean, and I guess it wasn't just the fact that you tried to commit suicide. You held on for, what was it? 24 hours?
Yeah, 20 hours. Was walking throughout my house, doing things, contemplating whether trying again or what I wanted to decide, what I eventually wanted to do. So that was the craziest part about it. Scientifically, anatomically, whatever you want to say, I shouldn't have been able to do what I was doing for 20 hours after shooting myself. And to be able to be as coherent as I was, to think about things and think about future and past and where I'm at, what I need to do in this moment to keep moving or not keep moving or whatever. The fact that I was able to think that clearly and think about what I wanted to do, it was just crazy to me. And it doesn't make any sense, but none of the story really makes sense from an anatomic standpoint, but I am lucky it worked out the way it did. And I'm even more lucky to be able to come out of it with a new sense of purpose and a new perspective, because unfortunately, a lot of times it's the exact opposite. People that don't want to be here, if they're unsuccessful, they're even more mad because they were unsuccessful. And unfortunately, that's just kind of part of it. And like I said, I'm just very fortunate that I came out of it with a different perspective than most. And hopefully that with me sharing this, it can help those people that are in those times to kind of get a new understanding and maybe make that adjustment and see the beauty in life.
And one thing I remember when you were here was your sweet parents. I mean, they were so adorable and so, loving and so proud of you. And I, as a mother, I immediately went there like, oh, what must they be going through? And, I mean, obviously I was thinking about you too, but I was thinking about those around you. What impact have you seen this have on them, and how have you seen them, your entire family and Diana rally around you?
Yeah, that's been the most special part about this, is kind of getting to know my family that I've known for 28 years on a different level. This has brought our family closer. Obviously, we went through a really tough time. I've really put them through the ringer, and I'm kind of coming out of this with a new understanding as a whole, like as a group. It's just special, and I don't say that in a way to glorify what I did, because it's a horrible decision and it's not the right thing to do. But given the circumstances, try to make the best out of any situation, and that's where we're at. And it's just one of those things I'm so proud of my family for, because it's one thing for me to share this openly and publicly, but to kind of ask them to do the same thing when it's not really up to them. I asked them if they were okay with it, but I don't think I really understood what I was asking of them, to be vulnerable themselves in the public eye. That's something that I relatively got used to with playing baseball and being an athlete, but that's something that they had no experience with, but they knocked it out of the park. They were so open and transparent and vulnerable, and they were able to really put their spin on it, and their perspective is just as important as mine. And it's something that I'm so proud of my family for, and it's something that we've grown through, and it hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of tough times that I've gone through that have also kind of brought up some bad memories for them, because this is obviously a very tough thing for them to take in. So anytime something's not perfect with me, it's easy for them to go back to that day and that time and get a little uncomfortable. So the fact that we're all going through this together is just kind of strengthening us. And unfortunately it happened, but again, we're just trying to make the best of a pretty ugly situation.
Since the ESPN documentary came out and you've started kind of publicly speaking about this, how has it all been received for you? Are you getting a lot of positive feedback? What has that all been like? Because all of a sudden you kind of become essentially a celebrity in a way, telling your story. And I'm sure that's a change too for your life.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's something that I wasn't completely used to, and I don't know, I try to prepare for whatever would come from it, but there's no way to prepare for something without going through it. But the attention has been so positive, and I've been really lucky to get pretty much everyone's best energy. A lot of people have shared some really inspiring and uplifting words and messages, and it's just been really fun to get to know people on a different level, a level that I wouldn't have probably experienced before my incident. I was a very surface level conversation kind of person, and now just getting to know my teammates on a deeper level, getting to, I don't know, hear some messages from fans and people, and it's just powerful. It's a really powerful experience for me, and I think that letting people in on it has allowed them to experience the power behind it as well. And I think it's something that is really beautiful, and it's, like I said, I've been able to see a lot of best people's energy, and I think that's something that a lot of people can take into different situations and relationships within their life, is just kind of giving their best energy to everyone. And I think that's where the beauty comes out of this, and the power that lays behind it.
What were those conversations like with your boys? What were those conversations like with Ryan Rua, with Joey Gallo? Yeah. How did those go? Did they have any idea you were in this place? And, what has it been like since then? I would assume, I know those two guys very well, and those aren't the only guys you were close with, but I can only imagine how supportive they've been.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's interesting because from the very beginning, when I was still in the hospital, calling people on the phone nonstop, I was an open book from the very beginning. And it's just interesting because for Ryan and Gallo and all my friends and old teammates that heard the news, that had no idea that I was going through anything like this, for them to just kind of hear the news and be taken back by it, and then all of a sudden they're on the phone with me and me telling like really specific details of what I went through and what I did, and I just really laid it all on them. And like, it just shows how strong of people they are, because they didn't budge. They didn't tell me, hey, stop, I'm uncomfortable. They just kept on supporting me and let me just keep talking pretty much, and just tell them how much, all the details I needed to get it off my chest. And then also just having that understanding of letting them know like how much they meant to me and how important they are in my life. And just having that really cool interaction of just like letting people in and like spreading some love. Because like I said before, I would never have told Gallo, hey man, I love you. Or told Rua like, hey, I love you, bro. Like, I just would have never went up to him and said that randomly, but I was able to do that because it's the truth. Like, I care about those guys like they're my family, and being able to do that and seeing the strength that they had to listen to me tell some really graphic details of my story and just be there for me was one of the most special things I'll ever experience.
Has it made you pretty hypersensitive to your surroundings, in tune with, your friends, your teammates, your family members?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely pay attention to more mannerisms and some sayings or whatever people are saying. I may be a little oversensitive at times where I'm like, that might be a little alarming when it could just be a joke. But yeah, I definitely pay attention to things in a different sense now, and I think it's really important to do that every once in a while.
So it's really interesting to me. And I've worked in, I know we just met, but I've worked in professional sports for 10, 11 years, and my husband does as well. And we were just talking about it a little bit. So it seems like what makes a professional athlete be able to be successful is the strive for perfection, and not just a professional athlete, but anybody that's successful. It's that type of person that never quits, that you always want to be better. And that's how you get to the spot that you've been able to get to that many people don't. And in your case, that perfectionism, that wanting something better and not feeling like you're good enough was proven to be the detriment in a way. And I know a lot of professional athletes wake up thinking about their sport and thinking about what went wrong that day or that season, or I'm not where I need to be yet, or I'm this age and I'm only here, whatever that may be. So I'm just wondering if you think, like, and maybe even just from getting feedback from other athletes, is this something that more athletes might be dealing with than anybody even realizes?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the case. And I think that's something that I've been wording it as like finding the sweet spot in the middle of wanting more and being appreciative of where you're at and being in the moment. Just finding that sweet spot, because if you're always wanting more and more and more, you're always looking towards the future. And unfortunately, you never be satisfied. No matter what you get, I think, unfortunately, you'll never be satisfied. So I've worded it as finding that sweet spot in the middle of being confident and being humble, being okay with where you're at, but wanting more. Just finding that sweet spot in the middle of all these things that you need to do to be a successful athlete. That doesn't mean you just sit there and just let things happen and whatever. Like, yeah, it's good, it's bad, it's whatever. But it's just one of those things that it can get to a level of detriment, and if you don't pay attention to it, it can get really detrimental, and it can get pretty ugly, and it gets really uncomfortable. And it doesn't need to necessarily mean it'll lead to wanting to commit suicide. But if you're unhappy with your life from something like that, then that's just as serious. So taking things with a grain of salt, wanting more is okay, but not to a level of detriment like we've been talking about. And I think it's something that's really important. And I think it's, like I said, unfortunately, I think a lot of athletes and a lot of people, I mean, who doesn't want to be better at whatever they're doing? Mm-hmm. In a healthy way is the most important part.
Do you worry about going back to that place, not about doing it again, attempting suicide again or anything like that, but do you worry about going back to that dark place? Do you have those open conversations with your family? Do they worry about it? How are you moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've gotten into two separate phases since my incident of having suicidal thoughts again. And it's more passive suicidal thoughts, but nonetheless, it's very serious. And it's something that I feel comfortable now about talking with them because like I said, I used to hold everything in and no one had any clue what was going on. But just letting them know, like, hey, I'm depressed, or I am depressed. I feel depressed, which I think is an important word usage as well. But kind of just going through those phases for what they are and letting myself know that they're not going to last forever, just like everything else in life. Like a quote that I hold on to a lot that flashes in my head when things aren't going right is nothing bloomed year round. So I just kind of picture myself like that. And when things aren't going right, I really lean on my support system, and I feel comfortable telling people around me when things aren't as pretty. And it's really interesting because once you do that, you feel like before you say it's going to be an inconvenience for them, like, hey, I'm not happy. Then you might feel like you might bring them down. But it's really funny. Like the moment you admit that you're feeling a little weak, you like immediately feel stronger about yourself afterwards. I can't explain why it happens that way, but that's something that I've experienced. Like when I go to therapy and I do my sessions with my psychologist and my psychiatrist, like when I go in with some really uncomfortable thoughts and really let it all out, I come out of it, even after just talking about some ugly things, I come out of it feeling way better. And like I said, I can't explain why, but I think just getting it out in the open for some reason is the most healing thing that I've ever done. And I think that's something that a lot of people can experiment with because we all do it. I've explained it compared it to venting with your friends and coworkers and whatnot. Like you vent about a little inconvenience that happened in your morning. For some reason, after you talk about it, you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the same exact thing that happens when you talk about mental health and the feelings that you're feeling inside, whether it be in a professional setting with a psychiatrist or just a close family member or friend. Once you admit that you're weak, you feel strong. It's really weird, but it's the truth, and it's something that it's the strongest thing you can do for yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, there's a beauty in vulnerability. I mean, and there's a certain level of freedom in admitting and owning up to your weaknesses. I mean, we've all got them.
Yeah.
So I can totally see where that's coming from, and I'm proud of you for sharing them. You mentioned your support system, and Diana was featured in the documentary pretty prominently. And I remember when you texted me that you were engaged, and we were so excited, and then not engaged, and then is she back in the picture? I'm just being nosy here
because Emily's very nosy.
But what's going on there? I need to know. How is she? How are y'all? What's the dealio?
She's great. She's my person. She's my person for life. I love her to death, and I'm just so fortunate to have someone like that throughout all this. She's been so strong for me, and I didn't even realize it. Like I said in the piece, it's hard for me to accept because I wanted to try to do things by myself all the time. I didn't want outside help. I wanted to just say I did everything on my own. I had the huge ego, and I didn't realize she was doing all these things beforehand as well. And now being a little more open and a little more vulnerable and seeing just how much she cares about me, having someone like that in my life, I'm so lucky, and I would do anything for her.
That makes me happy.
Oh, and you're playing baseball now.
Yeah, let's not bury the lead here. Fast forward a little bit. So a year ago, you're walking around for 20 hours with a bullet in your head, and now you are playing professional baseball. I mean, the decision to start this comeback, to try to make it happen, where did it come from? How hard was it? Take us through that process.
Yeah, it's one of the cooler parts about this story that I'm really proud of, but it's interesting because it kind of happened by accident. The first time I went to hit after losing my eye and being like clear to do activity, I went to the cages to say goodbye to baseball. I had just lost an eye. I went through what I went through. Like, I just assumed everything was over, and I took a couple swings off the tee, and I was like, dang, that felt pretty good. Go back. I told my guy to go back and flip some to me, and I tracked them, and I was able to hit them with some movement to it. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So I was like, I don't know, maybe, who knows? I was like, let me come back tomorrow. Let me see if I can hit some overhand. And I went back, and things felt pretty similar. Like, I felt like crap because I had just been laying down for a couple months, but like visually it felt okay. And I was like, man, I was like looking around the people with me at the cage. I was like, am I crazy for thinking that I might be able to do this with one eye? But from there, I just completely committed myself to an off-season routine, seeing what I was capable of with the idea in the back of my head. Like, whenever it gets to the point that I won't be able to do it anymore, like, that'll be it, but I'll give it a try. And like, I got to those places a couple of times where I thought it was over, but I just kept pushing through. And I was lucky enough to get an offer by the Giants to come back and attempt this comeback and go to spring training. And man, I can't even explain how excited I was when I found out that I made the AAA team, because I was completely aware that they were opening their season in Las Vegas. And just to be able to say I played a professional baseball game with one eye after attempting suicide is all I need. But to be able to actually be out here playing again, it's just special. It's so meaningful to me and everyone that supported me to this point, because I think that we're all experiencing together, like I said before. And it just shows like how powerful the mind is and how capable you are of doing whatever you want. And and I don't say that in an arrogant way at all. I'm very proud of myself to be able to be doing this. And it's also interesting because I'm not doing that well. Baseball is very hard, and it's still the same sport. It's a very challenging sport. And even though I have these new perspectives on things, I still go back to those places after I go 0-4 with a couple strikeouts. And it's interesting because it's still the same challenges and the same thing that was detrimental to me at times. But shortening that window, getting back to a positive perspective is the thing that I'm focused on most now. And it's something that I don't know, like I said, I'm just very proud of myself for committing 10 months of my life without having the idea that was actually going to be possible. and then now being able to experience it and do it with everyone around me is it's very special.
I'm proud of you too. I want to know physically, how do you feel? Physically, do you feel like you're the same guy?
Yeah, that's what's interesting. I actually physically feel better. Like I think I'm faster. I think I've increased my arm strength. I think my power's still there. I feel like I'm actually better off physically, but obviously there's an adjustment period of not playing. Even if I didn't lose an eye, not playing baseball for a year and a half, there's going to be some rust that I have to knock off. And I think that's where I'm at right now, because even though I have one less eye, I still see things pretty dang similar. And
I was wondering how, like, the reading of pitches, are you able to pick them up as quickly? And
I'm seeing the shapes, the spins, everything exactly how I would. I think there is a level of adjustment that I'm not really maybe giving credit for, that I have to still figure out, because I'm seeing it well. I'm swinging at good pitches, laying off some good pitches, but I'm still swinging and missing a bunch. So I think there's a level of adjustment that I need to get to really be able to stay uncomfortable up there. But for the most part, I feel great, and I'm just still holding on to the fact that I've always been a slow starter in the season. So I'm hoping that's still the case here, and that pretty soon here I find that adjustment and start turning things on and go through one of my hot streaks. And who knows, if that happens, I'll be even more proud of myself.
And so playing baseball again after everything that you've gone through, it still is a job. And as you just mentioned, it's still something that you're thinking about at night and you're still struggling with. But do you feel like now you see a broader picture, and that baseball's good, maybe you can start to compartmentalize that into, this is what I do for a living, but life is much bigger than baseball? Do you look at it differently now?
I'm starting to, and that's something that I'm starting to do. I say that as recently as like yesterday, because this first month of struggles, I can't say that I was that open-minded about it. I went back to the same place where I was like, no, this is unacceptable. Like, I need to just quit. I'm embarrassing myself. Like, I'm wasting the Giants' time. And that's why I say, I think within the last 48 hours, I've really had some realizations of there's a bigger picture here of me playing, and I want to do great, but just being out there is really important and really impactful for myself and for anyone who's struggling with mental health. Just kind of keep showing up. Then that's that's all I can ask myself, is just keep showing up and seeing what can happen. And being able to separate some failures on the field and coming back and realizing that this is bigger than baseball. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my message. This is mental health, and this is just human beings as a whole. I'm just really fortunate to be in that position, and I'm hoping I can really hold on to that more often, and maybe that'll lead to a little bit more looseness on the field and start seeing success, because it'd be a lot nicer to be talking about all these things after going 3 for 4 instead of 0 for 4.
So have you thought about what, obviously baseball as long as you can, hopefully for a long time. Have you thought about what's post?
Yeah, I think you have a calling doing something other than baseball.
Post baseball, PD.
You have a perspective nobody else has on life and what you've been through. And I feel like you have a calling. There's a lot of people that could use help from somebody like you. I don't know if that's something you thought about, trying to make a post-baseball career of it, and just working in mental health. Or do you want to do something totally different?
You want to be a banker? Or?
I think about it multiple times a day. Like I said, sometimes I think about it emotionally, because I've just struck out 3 times. I'm like, no, I just need to quit and go do whatever. And then sometimes I think about it more structurally, because my psychiatrist and I are in the process of starting a foundation right now to try to help with accessibility, mental professionalism. So we're in the process of that, and I think that I've totally found my calling, and it's something I'm really excited for, because I think it'll be something I'll be able to dabble in that while I'm playing baseball, and then whenever baseball ends, I'll be able to dive fully into it. And I'm really excited for that, because like I said, I think this is my calling, this is my purpose, and it's something I'm just super grateful and excited for.
Has there been one moment that stands out in particular, since, what was it, April 20th, that was I don't know,
a turning point?
Or something that really sticks out, like this happened, or, I got this message, or, this person reached out to me, or this person, not even this particular person, but somebody told me this story and how my story impacted them. And that made me feel like what I'm doing is the right thing.
Man, I don't know. I've had so many of those moments in the last year that it's all special. Like I think about the first time I went and hit, like I said, I had that realization, like maybe I can play baseball again. And then the first time, like the first time I went and talked with the Giants team in September, like getting past that moment, because that's something that used to build a lot of anxiety, is standing up and talking in front of people, like speaking to the team and talking about some vulnerabilities and just being there with them and feeling that support, and then filming the E60 early September, waiting for it to come out in February, and then in between all that, going through two separate phases of depression again, and then coming out of it and understanding those two phases actually were good for me because they brought me back to a level of relatability with the people that I'm trying to speak to with this message. And then getting to spring training and going through that month of spring, and then eventually hitting a home run in Las Vegas in front of everyone that was there. I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it, but that moment, that I don't know, the first moment of running out to the field on opening day, hearing my name called and completely losing it on the line, asking everyone around me who's cutting onions because I just couldn't hold it. And then 6 days later, hitting the home run in front of my family and everyone. My doctors were there, the team that put me back together at the hospital. My psychiatrist was there. A ton of family and friends were just in the area just because it's my hometown. Hearing all the support and then reading everyone's messages on Instagram and Twitter, and like just hearing like I said, the overall volume of support has been so special to me. And it's something that I go back. I just got done reading before I got on this call. I got done reading some messages because it helps me. It uplifts me when I go through some times. Because like I said, lately it hasn't been the easiest with baseball. So being uplifted like that from support system, whether it be my family or Twitter messages or whatever it might be, but going through so many different things this last year is as a whole, it's just meaningful, and I'm lucky enough to be able to say that I was able to do it. And I don't know. Like I said, I wrote it in one of my posts on Instagram that I feel like I'm living out a movie right now, because things are just working out so nicely for me, even with some of the uglier times throughout it. It's just I can't write a better story than this.
Stay there. Keep reading those kind messages. Keep in that same headspace, because so many people I know are really looking up to you right now. And you're talking about social media. And really, I just have to ask this probably final or close to final question about kind of what's going on in sports right now. The big story is about mental health and athletes. Naomi Osaka, the world #1 tennis player, made her statement saying that she didn't want to do media availability anymore. And then she withdrew herself from the French Open because, I'm sure you've heard all of this, she thought she was a distraction. And it seems like her doing that has really opened up the conversation even more to all of professional athletes and talking about mental health, whether it's how the media affects them or how playing the game affects them. But now that this is becoming such I don't want to say it's commonplace, but I think a lot of athletes are dealing with one thing or another, whether it's the media anxiety, the social anxiety of talking in front of cameras, or just the challenge to be your best self every single day. When you read about other athletes and their accounts of maybe what they're dealing with, I'm wondering if you're keeping up with that story and what your thoughts on that are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I saw, and it's something I was completely moved by. I thought the art or the message that she released with it was beautiful, and I think it was so authentic and genuine that how can you not empathize for her, because it was just so compassionate. And that's the thing. It's just like, I think as a whole, unfortunately, people think that athletes are these superheroes that don't feel things and not feel things, but I think it's just one of those things where sometimes when you talk about how you're feeling as a human being, it's like frowned upon, because it's like you get to play a sport for a living, you get to live a nice life and all these luxuries and things, but you're still human at the end of the day, and you still have the same chemistry going on inside of you as people who don't play sports. So dealing with things in a certain way is just the way you're wired. And if it's something that gives you anxiety, it gives you anxiety, whether it comes from answering media questions or it's a regular person who gets anxiety from getting stuck in a traffic jam. It's all the same things going on inside of you. And I just thought it was so beautiful how she was vulnerable and saying that she is an introvert, still trying to do these things. I mean, she's been doing it for all these years, and now we all know that she was doing it outside of her comfort zone. Like, how strong of a person is she for being able to do that for all these years without saying it? And now that she's saying it, it makes me think of her as an even stronger person because she's felt comfortable enough in her skin to share that with the world.
Yeah.
And that's not what you do. And I know how scary that is to do firsthand, because once you put yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there for people to maybe pick you apart. And unfortunately, we'll probably have with myself and Naomi. And but like I said, I think that the way she worded it, the way she went about it was so strong and so beautiful.
And isn't that the way it is now? Like, I mean, it's for, if you're a public figure, if you're a professional athlete, and, and with social media the way it is, I mean, you just open yourself up to such a magnified audience of critics. I mean, it's
you're like, I'm just doing a game that I love and I'm good at it. Doesn't mean I'm ready for all this criticism.
No, I mean, I've been doing TV for, almost 25 years. And the shit I get about my hair and, I'd do her, I wouldn't do her. I'd do her with a bag over her head. I'm like, for fuck's sake, what are we talking about? Like, just
asking baseball players questions.
Talking about baseball. Like, why did we go here? Like, I don't understand, but it's part of it.
I think that's one of the things too, is like, people think that when you open up about this stuff, you are in turn asking for sympathy. Like, that's the farthest thing from the truth. Like, Naomi and I, we're not asking for sympathy. We're just trying to make things a little bit smoother for the next person who maybe deal with anxiety on a daily basis, while trying to be a really good athlete. Like, you can do both. And I think the last thing that we're doing is trying to ask for sympathy for people to give us maybe an excuse or a break in certain situations. It's just who we are. And it's just and like I said, everyone has something that they're dealing with that makes them feel uncomfortable at times. So not asking for sympathy, just trying to open the door for people to express themselves in a more comfortable space. And
I think that's a great way to put it, Drew. And, the whole comfortable in your own skin. I mean, to me, that's the sign of the strongest. Like, you're a strong individual is if you are comfortable in your skin. You are comfortable with you and all your warts and all your crazy ass shit and all your stuff, that you can put it out there and be like, hey, this is me. It's not perfect. It's not pretty all the time, but this is who I am. And at this point in time, I mean, my ass is too old to change. I mean, you might still have some time, but I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what you're working with, and it's not going to change. So the quicker you can get in that comfort space in your own skin is a great thing. And I feel like you've come a long way in doing that.
I appreciate it. It's something that I definitely work on every day, and it's a lot of days it doesn't feel good, but it's something that I've committed myself to trying to get more comfortable with. And who knows, maybe one of these days, more days will be better than others.
Well, Petey, I just want you to know, I called you, FaceTimed you the night that I let Henry, my son, watch the documentary, and he was so excited that I was going to talk to you today. He was like, can I give you a baseball for him to sign? And I was like, no, honey, he's not going to be in studio. But, you're making such an impact.
You are.
And I'm so proud of you. And I don't want to cry, but I love you so much. And this is ridiculous.
No, it's
but I
true.
love you very much, and I'm proud of you. And I'm always here if you need me. And I'm gonna stop crying because it's so unattractive.
I just met you, but all the same things. I love you too.
So I love you. I love you very much. Love to your family. And I'm always here if I need you, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much, guys. I love you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here and doing this today.
Sorry for crying.
It was really wonderful. Now Emily's crying.
I know,
but it's a good cry. It's
we
a
may
good
have to
cry.
cut that out because it was bad.
No,
or
it's
put like
fine.
an emoji over my face.
I don't know how anyone could hear a story and
The
not feel
cry face
emotional.
emoji.
So it's you and everybody else, and it's just been so wonderful to have you today. Keep on spreading that good message that you're spreading, and keep that head in a positive headspace. And hopefully we can catch up with you again soon and talk about some more home runs or something bigger that you're doing with your life, because I see that happening for you for sure.
Thank you so much. Seriously, it means the world for me. So thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Love you, Petey. Say mom game out.
Oh, mom game out.
Yeah.